It's Sunday, September 20, and we are going to be talking about some really important things tonight. A subject that touches everybody, every family, and you need to listen. It's tonight's Ken and Glenn show with a guy named Scott. And here they are, the stars of our show, the guys that you have to see every Sunday night. Please welcome Ken and Glenn. And me, the guy named Scott. Hi, guys.
What's happening?
The stars of our show are all three. It's a triangle.
Yes. In fact, we should move Scott up there for the night.
Before I kind of like my position there in the lower third. I'm below the fold, as they would say in newspaper.
We were having a little NFL chat prior to coming on live. And gentlemen, I didn't get to say this, but I want to go ahead and say it was the shirt.
Oh, look at that. How about them Cowboys?
What an ending, man. I've been a fan since birth, and I've never seen a crazier ending than today's.
I just saw the onside kick. I've got a screen.
So did you see how it was going around?
And what in the world were the Falcons doing? Because it has to go 10 yards before the offense can touch it, but the defense can jump on it right away.
And they acted like all they've got to do is fall on the ball, and the game is over.
Game's over.
And it was available to be dropped upon. They were watching it just continue to spin like a top.
They acted like they didn't know the rules, like they had to let it go 10 yards, and the defense doesn't. Just the offense does. It's crazy. One of the things they said on the broadcast was it's the biggest comeback in the second half in Cowboys history.
Well, at one point, the Cowboys were down 20 points.
Yeah.
They spotted them a 20-0 lead with three fumbles in the first quarter, and then went on to have two unsuccessful fake punts. And I was trying to think, was there ever a time, and Babe Laufenberg, Brad's partner, behind the microphone, brought this up.
Indiana University's
was
Babe
there,
Laufenberg. Yes.
Say again?
Indiana University's Babe Laufenberg.
All roads travel through Indiana at some point. Scott, I've noticed that. It's like if I mentioned Captain Kangaroo, it's like, he owned a gas station in Indianapolis. Doesn't matter who it is.
Go-kart's Bob Keeshan, but no.
Oh my God! Somebody who knows Captain Kangaroo's name. Oh my gosh! Hey, for $100,000, what was Mr. Green Jean's name?
Lumpy.
You know that one?
Lumpy. It starts with a B. Barnum.
Please don't get it right, because I don't have $100,000 to give you right now. Okay.
But his name was Lumpy Barnum, Lumpy Bannon. All right, now you got.
Now are you going to look it up? I knew Bob
look it up.
Keeshan. I knew Bob Keeshan's name, but I don't know Mr. Green Jean's name. Anyway, today was one of those days.
Hugh Lumpy Branham. There we go.
Well, you get credit. I'll at least buy you dinner for coming up with Lumpy.
Did you guys share the video? Share this out?
I did.
And the reason I ask is Facebook has this issue going on right now where if I create the show like I normally do, it doesn't show up. It's crazy, man. So I had to just set it up where when we go live, period.
Hey, I want Ken to do the honors. Ken, I want you, if you would, to announce what tonight's topic is, and then I want to echo his announcement by asking you, based on the topic and how far and wide-reaching it is, if everyone tonight, please, which I've never asked this of our audience, would share tonight's show out. I would like this to be our largest audience ever, because the topic we are discussing affects more people than any topic we've spoken about in the 6 months that we've been on with our show. So with that in mind, Ken,
wow,
tell everyone what our topic is tonight.
Tonight, we are going to be talking about addiction and how it affects you, a loved one, someone you know. Addiction touches everybody, and I am, by the grace of God, I have 18 years of sobriety and recovery, but I have seen a lot of people not make it, and we all know somebody, and I know a ton of different people that are in the throes of addiction of some sort. And addiction's not just, alcohol was my thing, and there's tons of other addictions: drugs, food, sex. We've talked pre-show, we talked about a lot of them, but and me, I have a very addictive personality for sure. So, but that's part of the gig, So, we're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about how it impacts families and loved ones, and just going to see where it goes from there. By the way, I'm getting more notifications about this being shared out than ever in the history of our show. Unbelievably.
Well, in life, all you got to do is ask. I mean, really, if you just ask and say, look, my heart is really moved, and I'm asking you to join what my heart is feeling. And of course, I had a direct loss of one of the most significant people of my entire family system, and the one and only full blood brother that I have a little over a year ago. And so it's very important. And to have watched his walk in that for 40 plus years was something that was not easily viewed or experienced. And it's not as though everyone had some sort of distant end zone seat from the activity. It really is about winding up with a 50-yard line seat with someone you love very much. And there's really, sadly, there is a limit to what you can do. There's not a limit to how much you can love, but at the end of the day, it is going to be on someone to address what has a hold of them. And our job is to support them in that, but you can't do it for anyone. And this is one of the things that I learned through this. And of course, we're not merely talking about or specifically talking about alcoholism. We're talking about all forms of addiction. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you for sharing it out. We do want a lot of people to watch and chime in, by the way. We know you have stories. Please share them with us tonight.
Yeah.
And it's affected our family too. We did not talk a long time ahead of the show about whether or not we were going to talk about this. So I did not get that person's permission to identify them. And I respect that. It's his or her responsibility to do that, not mine, but it is a person in our family who has sought treatment, who struggles with it every day, who has, sought treatment several times. And the impact that addiction has not only on the addicted, but as Glenn mentioned, the ripple effect of it through families is difficult and it's devastating, and I think it has more impact than what we have had an intensive national conversation about, and we need to.
Yeah. I totally agree. I saw, just so you can hear it from the perspective of, someone who's been in the throes of addiction. The addict and alcoholic don't realize what they're doing to other people. Yeah. I listened to a guy who was, and for anonymity purposes, I won't mention his name, but he was a state senator for a state, and Well, the South. I'll leave it at that. But
It was probably Indiana.
It was you're very, very.
Thank you for the laugh, Scott.
Incredibly warm, actually. But anyway, so I heard this guy give his talk, and he had, I don't know, 40 years sober, and said one of the most profound things I'd ever heard. And he said, I truly believe, he said, you've heard the saying that, alcohol wants to, or my disease of alcoholism wants to kill me, or it just wants to kill you. And he said, I don't believe that's true. He said, what I believe is true is my disease just wants another drink. It's that simple.
Boy, I was going to say that's pretty succinct.
That's powerful.
It's the most powerful thing I ever heard, because I was like, yeah, I never thought about, like, hey, this disease I'm carrying around wants to take my life. It wasn't like that. The disease I'm carrying around just wanted another drink. And that's it. And whatever it took to get that drink is what it did. It's what and so, yeah, it's powerful. Did you send that link to that lady, by the way, Glenn?
I did.
Okay, good.
Ken, and thank you first off for your openness. You've been open about this previously, but thank you so much for not only sharing your story, but being so open, to questions and providing us insight. And I wonder, when we were here in Vegas, we would be in restaurants, and I didn't know when I first met
you. Didn't?
No, I had no idea, so I'd sit there and get a glass of wine, and Tammy'd get a glass of wine. Does that bother you when people that you were with? I mean, had I known, I would have been more reticent about ordering a drink when we were at dinner.
So
I don't know how to feel about that. Help me know, because I'll do whatever's the best thing to do. But
right.
I didn't know.
Well, and so for me, and I've been around people that knew that I was in recovery, and they were like, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Let me get rid." I'm like, "No, like, I'm not a cancer patient here. Like,
right.
Drink your booze." Like, here's the thing. For me, and it's all on an individual level. When I've sponsored guys before, I've said, look, you got to change playmates and playgrounds, and you got to make sure that you're living a different lifestyle than hanging out in bars, because there's an old saying, and that is, if you hang out in a barber shop long enough, you're going to get a haircut eventually. Mm-hmm. And so, you don't hang out in those places that you used to hang out. But, for me, I was like, it doesn't bother me. In fact, it's offensive when people do that. Okay. It's like, no, just drink, man. Like, there's no judgment. I don't care. Like, do your thing. I just don't drink. Look, I smoked cigarettes for 30 years, and I would hang out with people all the time that didn't smoke, all the time. Right. And so it's like, hey, if I smoke and you don't smoke, I'm not going to be like, hey, just go smoke your cigarette, man. It's like, drink if you're going to drink. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It only bothers me when people start getting sloppy and acting belligerent, because I see myself. Really. And it's like, oh God, I used to be like that. I don't want to be like that.
Then I owe you an apology.
You are the least belligerent drunk I've ever known in my life, dude. I've been around Scotland.
I'm Mr. Happy, weepy, tell you everything. It's like,
hey, Scott, I just want to
long-winded now. Get a couple drinks in me.
By the way, your concern about your behavior, Scott, when you were with Ken, and you didn't mean any disrespect. You just didn't know. You didn't know what to do, what not. You were unaware. I just want to offer that. I kind of want to piggyback on Ken and say that every Sunday evening, it doesn't piss me off that both of you just sit there with your hair. Hey, Lynn, I saw your post, and I just double checked and resent it to you. So check your check your email. I'm not giving out emails, but I did send it again about a minute ago. So you might look and see. Will you confirm whether or not you received that email and then show up backstage?
Chaya is, and is it Chaya or Chaya Lopez? I apologize for not knowing the pronunciation of that. But
you told us before. What is it? Chaya? I don't remember.
Anyway, her earlier post was just heartbreaking.
Let's light them up.
Her uncle.
Can we go back to that one? Because this is a big group participation tonight.
Yeah.
Scott, you want to go ahead and read it?
Yeah, this really struck me, and it's such a post. I had an uncle who died on the streets years ago. He dealt on and off with being an alcoholic. He was a pastor when he was sober and lived on the streets when he gave into his addiction.
Wow.
And so there is someone who obviously, you get in the ministry not only because of your faith, but your desire to help others. And
Kaya.
Just, Kaya.
Yeah.
Kaya.
Yeah. So no one has an exemption card.
Yeah, exactly.
No one has an exemption card. This is my, go ahead. You can read that. That's
it's covering up Scott. Sorry, Scott. Here, since I'm reading, we'll do that. Alcohol was the cure. It was the only thing that made me comfortable in my skin. I can relate to that. Unfortunately, it requires more and more to maintain. I first got sober when I was 23. When I reached bottom, I thought it was the end of me. Looking back, I realized that it was the gift of desperation. I am 61 and I still only have a daily reprieve from hell. Amen.
That's a great sentence.
I have been given tools to allow me to claim it, name it, and tame it. If I do not use the tools, I go right back to the insanity. Amen and amen and amen and amen. I agree with that. So she's been sober longer than God is what we refer to it as in the program.
Love you, Trina.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Trina's my bud.
So Ken, as long as you have been sober, like today, was there a desire to have a drink?
That is a great question. A lot of people ask that actually. No. And I'll tell you, the desire to drink was lifted. I think it was, look, I was court ordered to go to AA when I was 12. And I was a full-blown alcoholic at 12, 13 years old. And I was in and out. I'd go a few years, a couple of years, relationship would start to go south, whatever. And I'll go to a meeting, I'll go to, and then I'd go to one meeting and, I can't take it. It's too smoky in those meetings because they used to smoke in the AA meetings.
Yeah, it's called cross addiction. I love it.
It was awful. And I was a smoker and I'd be like, I need to smoke my own cigarette just so I can breathe in here. But anyway, so, at 34 years old, something happened, man. And it was a spiritual awakening for me. It was a thing. And I just, boom, man, I had enough, I guess. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to die. I didn't know what to do. And so I went into a meeting the next night and yeah, so I know I don't have a desire ever.
That's good.
Ever. In fact, being around drunks helps me also sometimes. It just reinforces. It reinforces. Can you hear me? Trina said she lost the volume.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine as well.
Yeah. So no, it's Kimberly says my brother struggled with addiction. He committed suicide 2 years ago. Wow. So sorry. That is why I'm an emotion code practitioner. At the time, I did not know how to reach him. We live out our trapped trauma. Isn't that the truth?
Repeat that, please, Ken. We live out
we live out our trapped trauma. It's true. 100% true.
Yeah, so that is an internal condition that is forever playing itself out in the manifest realm until we make adjustments. And it's interesting that the fix is thought to be external. People keep thinking that when I change my environment, and that's part of the support plan, but as though that's going to fix it, to fix from the outside in. And that's as utterly foolish as rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. There's those adjustments have got to be, they've got to be done internally. And I want to read you guys 2 addictions. I've done my homework in preparation for tonight's show right here. I've got these definitions that one is as an adjective, addiction, and specifically addicted, is physical and mental dependency on a particular substance and unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects. And then there's also an informal version of addiction, which really addresses more enthusiasts, where we casually say enthusiastically devoted to a particular thing or activity, so that he's got an addiction to football or an addiction to computers and so forth, but still serious and still something that derails interaction with other things because it's such an intense preoccupation. And this is where we get into scenarios where people are addicted to work or addicted to a hobby. They get up in the morning and they play with trains all day, every day. There's nothing wrong if you're into trains. That's great. But I think what it comes down to is, here's the question that I want to pose to you guys. What is your addiction at the exclusion of? What is it at the exclusion of? And to me, that would be a tipping point where there is certainly not the only tipping point, but that would be one of the concerns, is when something continues to take precedence over all other things. So what is it at the exclusion of? Is it at the exclusion of your relationship? Is it at the exclusion of your health? Is it at the exclusion of your ability to pay your bills? Is it at the exclusion? And then you can fill in the blank. I know way too much about addiction. And here's my buddy Stuart. Stuart, I left Sarah a message, and we would like to have you guys on the show tonight. So I'm going to, if you will reach out to me, Stu, and send me your email, I will email you the link, and both of you are invited to be on, and we can create a little panel. My friends Sarah and Stuart, who live in New Mexico, years and years ago, opened a PADAP organization. It stands for Palmer Drug Abuse Program. And I guess Stu started this down in Houston, and they moved to a branch in New Mexico. And I will leave it up to him to talk within his comfort zone about whatever he wants to. But hopefully, Stu, you and Sarah, or either one of you individually, could come be a guest. I've already got another friend of mine who's been actively involved with the how this negatively, yes, impacts your life. Correct, Stuart.
Kaya says, through Celebrate Recovery, I eventually realized we all have our form of addiction, and we all have some healing to do. My addiction is working and food. Coaching others as a spiritual wellness coach, I've been able to help others find peace and hold them accountable for getting help. Yep.
So what sets it up, Ken? Let's talk about that. Let's go upstream a little bit.
There's the so if you
okay. Let me
forward on that email, it'll go
see, all it takes is a phone call and this is great.
Yeah.
I will forward this.
PDA.
Actually, hey Ken, you can just forward that. That way it's right there.
Yeah. Okay.
And both Sarah and Stu know the world about this. It is their business.
Yeah.
And plus you'll be adding 3 more friends, Scott and Ken, to your life. Dear friends of mine and lifelong friends.
Read me that email address, would you?
PADAP, so it's PDAP, and then
PDAP.
Hobbs, which is HOBBS at gmail.com. And Hobbs is a city in New Mexico. So Palmer Drug Abuse Program, Hobbs at gmail.com. PADAP, Hobbs at gmail.
Yep.
So let's talk about the development of it and how it occurs, Ken. I mean, if you want to share your story of how that came to be, when was that dependency birthed? Do you see a traceable pattern to how it came to be? What were the underpinnings of it, the rumblings with growing up before that dependency began? What was going on that might have led to that?
Well, there's multiple opinions and different schools of thought on where it originates. Some people I've been doing this for 40 years almost in some form or another, and so no, 40 years, that's insane. Anyway, geez. So I heard an expert say that they've discovered that there's a chemical inside of an addict or an alcoholic's brain that can only be detected during an autopsy. And it's called THIQ is the short version. I forget what it stands for. But I don't know that that's true or not. I have no idea. There are people that say that it's a disease, that you're genetically predisposed to have, yada, yada, yada. There are people that say it's an environmental thing, the how you were brought up, etc. And for me, I have no idea. All I know is at a very early age, I believe I was 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember exactly, but that's when I believe had my first taste of alcohol. And
did you say 7?
7 or 8? Wow. Well, I mean, when I was a baby, my grandmother used to rub whiskey on my gums to stop the teething pain. So, we could go, and that not because she, was trying to make sure that I was an alcoholic. That's just was old school, whatever. Like, hey,
well, but it taught you very early on that this is a solution to all things.
Well, yeah, right. And
let's just rub a little alcohol on it.
Yeah, just put a little bit of whiskey on his gums, and he'll quit crying. So, there, Ernest has it up on the screen. So, for me, and hey, we got Stuart in the green room. I'll bring him in here in a second. But for me, I don't know what the tipping point was. I just know that by the time I was 12, I was doing alcoholic things. I had, actions I was taking, that only alcoholics would do, or addicts. Normal people don't do the things that we do. And so, I mean, by my late teens, man, it was way more than evident. But here's the thing: everybody except for me knew. Like I'm the only one that didn't realize it. Houston, we have a problem. And so, I would go through the actions of, well, this relationship's going bad, or I'm in trouble with this work situation. So I'm going to go, see a counselor. And I remember one time I went to a counselor, and it was a work thing when I worked at the Honda factory. They said, hey, instead of us firing you, you could go get some help. And so I went and I saw this counselor, and this woman was a very, very large woman. And I'm not making fun, but this was the mindset that I had back then. And I remember she had me take this test, and I'm like, yeah, I got this. I've taken 100 of these tests. I'll fool them. And so I they go through this test thing and get the results. And she goes, you are a ticking time bomb ready to go off. And I looked at her and I said, have you looked in the mirror?
Oh man.
I was just an asshole. And I got up and I walked out and I said, you're nuts. Why don't you go get some help yourself? And for your food addiction. And I walked out and because alcoholics are also normally a little above average in intelligence. So I really felt like I had this woman, but she was right. She was right. Let's bring Stuart on. Stuart, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Glenn, what's up?
Hey, brother, I'm glad you're here.
I love you, man. It's good to see you.
It's good to
Hey,
see
do
you
not,
too.
please do not let the fact that I cannot spell my last name keep you from hearing me.
Well, the good news is Ken
I've been
can adjust
practicing
it.
a long time. I still can't get it, but that's okay.
Listen, Ken can adjust it.
I sure can.
He can adjust it right now. So let's get it spelled correctly.
Instead of a T, we need to put an R in there.
So it's
Shrove, not stove. I'm not sure that matters, but SROUFE.
Already done.
Now Ken's thinking, well, it looked better with a T.
It kind of does. Can we put it back?
Put them both in there, brother. We'll compromise.
STR. So, Glenn, you just sent me something. Oh, you need me to send that?
Will you send that just in case Lynn has still not received it, and I don't know why. And I do want to continue for us to highlight some of these things that are coming in because we've got a lot of them. So, Stu, I just thought that you, as much as anyone I've ever known in my life, you, Sarah, my dear friend Lynn, who I believe is coming on here soon, would be perfect people to share your story and where you were. I mean, the whole deal about experience, strength, and hope, where you were, how it was, how it is now, and what you're moving toward in the future. I'd love for you to tell our audience your story. We're on every Sunday night, and this is the first time that we've talked about addiction.
And mine's the same as Ken's and other people. I grew up in the 60s, 70s, hometown Houston, Texas. Discovered alcohol at a very, very young age, about 11. Fell in love at about 15 with heroin. Used heroin for a long time. Had the in and out of jail, in and out of treatment. I was one of the real fortunate ones. My dad was a huge attorney in Houston. I don't mean just size wise. I mean, he had 250 lawyers, and back in the 70s, that was a big place.
Wow.
And so when I started having a problem with heroin, everybody listened. And
wow.
I got help. I turned it around. I had about 3 or 4 or 6 real good starts that didn't end well. I finally got sober in 1978, June the 27th. And have been clean and sober, no drugs, no alcohol, no pills, no funny stuff at all since June 27, 1978. And I'm very, very grateful for that. It took a lot of people helping me. It took a lot of, the main thing I was listening to the news the other day. Not everybody will agree with this, and that's fine. People say, well, this treatment's important. This treatment's important. This treatment's important. This place to go. What we really want to do is help people. What we want to do is give people alternatives. What we want to do is this and that. The thing that saved my life was one thing. Wasn't where I went to treatment. I went to the best treatment centers in the world at that time because we had tons of cash. We were a dysfunctional family, but not financially dysfunctional. So what got me sober, what kept me sober, I do believe this, was being held accountable for my actions. Yeah. Back then, nobody felt sorry for you. Nobody said, hey, man, whatever you need to do. People said, hey, if you're going to do this, here's what it costs. And I just got tired of paying the dues for running around being crazy, And I agreed with what everybody said about the addiction. And I know a lot of people that use tremendous amount of alcohol, and I know several that use a tremendous amount of dope. But I ask people, it doesn't matter to me how much you're using, where you're using, what the circumstances of your use are. We're all the same, and we're all different. What matters to me most of all is, what does it keep you from getting? What are you not getting because you do dope and you drink? What are you not getting? And once you can answer that question, then it becomes apparent what you need to do. But I know a lot of people that drink a lot that run the world, and so it doesn't seem to be affecting a lot of areas. But that's a real personal question.
2 weeks ago on this show, I brought up the question, which is the exact same thing, Stu, worded a different way, which I said that two questions I wanted to ask everybody is the first one is, what are you doing? And the second one is what you're doing keeping you from doing?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you just said. And so it's interesting. It's interesting how once again, within 2 weeks, that very same question is being posed. What is it keeping you from doing? So what was the tipping point for you, Stuart, when you, and how far along were you in your sobriety when you made a decision that not only do I want to take care of myself, but I actually want to get directly involved on the firing lines of helping other addicts, and your involvement with PDAP? Can you tell us that story?
And I got sober, Glenn, at 23. Remember, I've been shooting heroin a long, long time. Had hepatitis C, lots of other things. So I got sober early. But I started working in the field when I had 6 months sober, because back in the 70s, 60s, nobody had ever heard of anybody 21, 22, 23 years old being sober 6 hours.
Well, you've always been an overachiever.
Yeah, well, I like to, I always stated that, but it is and I've been in the field ever since. I'm 42 years in the field, and it's remarkable. Things have changed a lot in the last 42 years, but still a big need.
We coddle now.
Well, we just don't want to be mean to anybody. And
I know.
And my parents didn't care much about being mean. My dad said, what kind of car you want? And I said, God, can I have anything? Yeah, you can have anything you want. Doesn't matter. You won't have it long. But he said, if I'm going to take away a car for you doing dope, I want it to be a real nice one. I want it to hurt when I remove it from your life. So my dad had a pretty good idea of what to do, and he had a pretty good idea of I wasn't paying his bills, so he didn't much care a lot about what I thought. And he was good. He was good. He helped me along the way, but he held me accountable. And people say, what helped you the most? Was it the first treatment center you were in? I was in 6. Was it the first treatment center or the 6th? And I said, who's responsible for my life being saved tonight is Houston Police Department. I went to jail more than anybody I'd known. I was in jail at least 2 times a week. And I tell you what, being held accountable for what I did. I got sober the last dope I had. I went to jail, 61 Reasoner Street in Houston, Texas. My dad came down to see me. He spoke to me through the glass. Back then, you couldn't, you didn't have much visits. You just had glass you spoke through with 5 little holes in it. He leaned up against the glass and he said, let me tell you something. He said, I love you. I hope this doesn't kill you. But he said, you've been dead for years. This will just make it official. He said, I'm going to leave you in here for the first time since you've been in jail. And I said, what a lousy parent. My God, how do you leave a child in jail? And he said, it's real easy. We're going to go to Hawaii, and we're not going to worry about you because we're sure you're going to be out by the time we get to the airport, because your friends that you love so much and that love you will come down here and post bail, post haste. And again, I never saw another person and finally got the bail lowered and got out of jail. And last time I ever did any dope. And I attribute my parents and that tough love to making the difference it took in my life.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
That's awesome.
And so what about the creation of PDAP? I mean, I know you didn't start PDAP, right?
No, PDAP's program started in Houston in 1971.
Okay.
By a heroin addict by the name of Bob Meehan. And his dad was the chief of police of Lexington, Kentucky. Bob was in prison, got out of prison, moved to Houston to live with his aunt, went to work at a little college there, Rice University, digging sprinkler systems. Episcopal priest from across the street at Palmer Church walked over there and said, I can't help but notice you're singing every day. What's going on? He said, Father, he said, it's the greatest thing in the world. He said, I've been sober 12 days today. And from then on, started the Palmer Drug Abuse Program.
Wow.
And then you opted to move to Hobbs, New Mexico,
Yes,
and you
yes.
and Sarah started your own treatment center out
Yes,
there.
we started a program in Hobbs in 1981. December of 81. We've been here ever since.
And then, you know, in my own naivete, not anymore, but for years, early on, I mean, I suppose I still have trace amounts of naivete, but with regard to the location of drug abuse, I guess I used to think a long time ago, I mean, it's been many years since this changed, but that this was a big city problem. And I didn't realize that this is everywhere and sometimes even greater in these rural communities. And it French fried the circuitry of my brain to find out how could someone in a little bitty old town, let's choose a random state, like say, for example, Indiana, how someone in Indiana, rural Indiana, where you've got rolling hills and beautiful fields and horses and trees and everything that seems beautiful about life. And then you've got a meth lab going on, and that kind of thing is all over the world, really. But I'll talk more about our country, that it is not a big city problem, and it hasn't been a big city problem for a long time. It's a problem everywhere.
We had a meth lab right next to our house out in the middle of nowhere. That we found out the next door neighbor had a meth lab going. And I mean, there wasn't 20, 30, maybe 30 people that lived in a 5 mile radius of where we were. So like it was literally in the middle of nowhere. It's everywhere. And one thing, where are the rolling hills in Indiana again?
Oh, in southern Indiana. Yeah, where I'm from. Yeah,
I said hills. I didn't say mountains.
Well, southern Indiana is very hilly, and I see Charles posted about Little Pink Houses, the Mellencamp song from our county.
Yeah,
and there is a serious meth problem in our area, and the town 4 miles south of us, Austin, Indiana, was on the front page of the New York Times as having the highest rate of HIV per capita of any community in America. And it's because right on the interstate and drugs and everything that goes along with doing what it takes to get drugs. And so that's just, it's all right there. So yeah, Glenn, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's decimating small town America as well as urban areas.
And it takes three things. It takes people, it takes dope, and it takes money. And it's funny you mention Indiana, because I'm going to tell you something. Indiana's got a little oil industry down there.
Take it easy now, just so you know, Scott's from Indiana.
I understand. I got him kicked off. Oil's not doing good today at $41, but it's going to be doing good again. And Indiana's got some oil down there. And so I know quite a few people there that are in the oil industry. And so that provides a lot of money. Now, you got to remember that our buddies down south in Mexico have pretty much shut down the meth labs in the United States. I mean, there's not much need to work real hard when you buy that stuff coming across the border for just a nickel a pound. Not quite that cheap, but extremely. It's not worth going to the store and collecting all the stuff you got to do to make meth, because they're just giving it away. And so they flood this market with this stuff. And I mean, it is, of course, I live right next to the border, so it is everywhere down here.
Wow.
As is heroin, as is cocaine, as is everything. But
and that's been one of the big. Oh, I'm sorry, Stuart.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that was one of the big surprises. We've dealt with addiction issues in our family, and one of the things that was really surprising. You know, I'm of the age that heroin addicts were, musicians in Illinois or New Orleans, right? I mean, they were in Chicago or New Orleans, and and you don't think about, but with the plethora of prescription drugs, and then how do you get that cheaper? And that heroin use is everywhere, where folks of our age, that was something you read about in the paper, but you certainly didn't think about heroin being in, Crothersville, Indiana.
Right.
Yeah. And they're smoking this stuff now. Imagine that. I don't know what I told him, I said, I don't know what the world's coming to, smoking heroin.
So you never got to that point with it? That's something that started after you were done with it?
No, I injected heroin. I never smoked any. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there was
That sounds a lot more painful.
Well,
by the way, intravenous use, Stu, just to be clear, is the usage of this very show that we recommend. We recommend that most of our viewers hook up intravenously.
Just go straight.
Just mainline, baby.
Just go straight to the source. No. Do you know how hard that stuff is on your lungs? Yeah, I got you.
Thank God I don't. Hey, Lynn,
Good name though, isn't it? Intravenous use. That would be.
Hey, let's do some more time. And Ken, I sent you a different email. Apparently, that first one didn't work. If you'll send that to Lynn.
Already done.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Lynn, check your email. I was sending it to an older one, so try that.
I think that, back when I first started going, which was probably very close. Well, it's been 40 years ago that I was first court ordered to go to an AA meeting. So it didn't stick. It didn't stick. I can tell you that. But all the seeds were planted. I had a woman that was from West Virginia. She was from a little town in southern West Virginia, and she sounded like it. I love her to death. Her name, everybody called her Miss Viv. She had 40 some odd years sober, and she lived her life helping alcoholics get sober. And I remember saying to her one day, I said, Miss Viv, how in the world do you get 40 years of sobriety? I mean, I only had maybe 12 months at the time. 40 years of sobriety. And she said, well, honey, here's how you do it. You don't drink and you don't die. And then she started cackling. I was like,
in that order.
In that order, that's right. But back in the day though, and Stuart will you had old timers. If you were in a meeting going, hey, I feel like I feel like drinking, this is a bunch of bull crap, y'all are crazy, I don't want to be here, they'd be like, well, dude, go get some more booze in you then and come back when it stops working. I mean, there was no coddling, there was none of that.
So they were all up for you to go out and conduct some more
research. There's Lynn.
Yeah, they said don't kick back in there.
So let me introduce you. Lynn, meet Ken Walls, meet Scott McCain, and meet Stuart Shroof. Everybody, this is Lynn Cruz, and I've known both Stuart and Lynn for many, many years. So welcome, guys, because this is a subject about which you both know a tremendous amount about, and we welcome and embrace and celebrate not only your awareness, but frankly, your giving hearts to help other addicts, because I know that you're both deeply devoted to that, as is Ken. And Ken just recently took his 18-year chip, and we are so proud of him. But I just figured this would be a topic that you guys might want to chime in on. I'm sorry, Stu, you were congratulating
around Stuart here. I'm still in early sobriety compared to Stuart.
I'm trying to get comfortable.
I'm just old.
I'm sorry. Am I on is my mic on?
Yeah, you're on. Everything's good.
Good.
Oh, I'm trying to get comfortable here.
Well, being uncomfortable is part of the show.
Part of life,
isn't it? Generate good product. So, Lynn, will you do you want to listen in for a bit? You want to chime right in, because we would certainly welcome your story, your journey, and what your bottom was, and what your shift in your thinking was, and so forth. I mean, you're an amazing testimony to recovery, and I watched you walk this road.
Yeah, ups and downs too.
And it's been powerful for me to witness the change in you.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Yeah, you've seen me in and out for a while there.
I have.
My name is Lynn, and I'm a recovered addict and an
Hi, Lynn.
alcoholic. Hi. I don't know why I can't get in the middle of the screen here. Okay. Yeah, thank you guys for asking me to come speak to you. I take addiction. I take this very, very seriously because it is my life, and it ran my life for so long, and it was an obsession for me that I couldn't overcome without having help. And I didn't know how to get that help to begin with until I found out about AA and CA. I'm a member of Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know, how long do you want me to speak for, Glenn? Because I can, I don't know where to start and where to end.
Well, I mean, we just want to hear your story.
Okay.
We don't have the network dictating. We don't have any commercial breaks.
Okay.
We're good.
So there's no promotions going on. Okay.
Right.
I started off in school, in the 60s, and that's just what we did. Everybody, I'm looking at myself on here only. Can't I look at somebody else?
Here's a thought. Don't do that.
Yeah, put everybody there. I like that better. Now I can see you guys. Because then I'm too self-conscious. I'm just staring at me.
You feel like you're the only one in the world, and that's where the whole
I'm the only
problem
one
started.
here talking to myself. Yeah, that doesn't
Ken's
work
gonna
for
send
me.
you right back to where the whole nightmare began.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah, really. Oh God. Okay. Anyway, so the 60s, everybody used a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. I started then with just being a part of, just wanted to be with my friends. I never expected it to go where it went. I just wanted to be a part of the group of people that I hung out with. And I keep hearing a static too. I'm sorry.
I think you're popping something.
If you guys have earbuds that you can plug in, it would make it a whole lot better.
I don't.
It's the feedback you get from a cell phone and a tablet.
I'm on a computer though.
Oh, are you? Then it's probably Stuart. Sorry.
Yeah.
I can. I'll mute Stuart while you're talking. How
There
about
you
that?
go. Right.
Yeah, just for a minute. I'm sorry. I'm so demanding. So demanding. Like it. Okay. Thank you. There, it's gone.
See, it's very quiet now.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, so I did it, with my friends and everything all through high school. Got married early, married my high school sweetheart, had a baby at 18, went on into, my life was all about searching for whatever I could find to make me feel better. I just wanted something to make me feel better because I didn't feel good about life. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I mattered. I didn't feel like I belonged. I acted like that, but deep down, I didn't feel like it, So I always had like this facade going on, and I didn't really know who I was, and I couldn't understand. I'd watch other people be happy and be free and do things, and I would look at them with envy, like why can't I do that? I don't know how to do that unless I'm loaded, And so I went on to another marriage, and then from there to another marriage. I mean, obviously my picker was broken. I didn't know how to pick the right person to share my life with. And plus I wasn't the best person to be living with either, because
I'd never heard that line before. My picker was broken. I love that. That is a great line, Lynn.
Scott, I sent you a text.
Okay,
Lynn.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I was choosing people according to what I was missing, rather than and expecting. And I was choosing people, places, and things, and according to what I thought I needed to fulfill me and make me be a happy person. I just wanted to be a happy person. I wanted to enjoy life without going through what I went through with the drugs and alcohol. Anyway, so oh goodness, now I just got lost. So
That's
I went through.
No pressure. You only have a national audience.
I know. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Okay. Don't anybody write a book about this unless I know about it, or a movie. Okay. That's another. I go off all over the place because I have a very busy head, and that's one of my problems. I have a very busy head that does a lot at once, and I have to differentiate with what's important and what's right in front of me. So right now, this is right in front of me, and this is what I need to be doing. And I believe everything happens in God's world for a reason, and I'll go more into that. So anyway, because of all these feelings of lack and all these defects or these shortcomings that I had, that's why I used, because it would make me not feel guilty or feel remorse or feel any worse than I already did. If I was loaded all the time. So I stayed loaded all the time. I mean, I can't even count how many times I wasn't loaded. I was loaded all the time. People didn't know I was loaded because that was my natural state. If I wasn't loaded, they thought something was wrong.
And is this something you guys, Stu, you and Ken, is Lynn talking about something that you can relate to? I'm just looking because I know everyone's being very respectfully quiet, but
Sure.
yeah, I'm just wondering if you were nodding your heads internally. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead,
So
Lynn.
I'm
I'm
on
just
the right-
curious.
Can I ask
I'm on
a
the
quick
right track?
question? Yeah, Lynn,
Yes.
absolutely. When you say you were loaded, pardon my naivete, but is that alcohol? Is that drugs? Is it both? What
It was everything.
Everything.
It was
Okay.
everything. It was
Not
uppers,
something specific or
downers, cocaine, alcohol, everything.
Lynn was
Anything
the
I
only
could-
person in the program that when they asked her to clarify her drug of choice, she just checked every box there was. And that way we can eliminate all
Stuart
questions.
understands. Stuart understands. They call us trash heads, trash can junkies, because we do anything that was in front of us just to get high, And so that was the way, I came up. So I thought that was normal. That was normal. I didn't know what normal was. And then it got to the point where, I'm going to get into some recovery here. It got to the point to where I couldn't keep doing what I was doing because I was tired of getting what I was getting. And until I didn't know that, and that all I needed to do was do something differently if I wanted to get something different, and that came the term of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's what I kept doing. I didn't realize the problem was me. The problem wasn't the drugs or alcohol. The problem was me. And the problem lives up here. It lives in my thinking. So they say stinking thinking. My thinking, the way I ran my life was I would act on something. I would, impulsively act on something or react to something. And then I'd think, then I'd feel like crap. And then I would think, oh God, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and recovery is about doing that opposite. It's about thinking about it first, feeling it and then acting on it rather than coming from a reactionary place in life. And I was in bondage of that reaction. That's all I knew. So in 1987, I went into a treatment center, and I was confronted by a bunch of girlfriends that saw that there was a problem. And one of their mothers was an alcoholic, and she came up to me and said, "How you doing, Lynn?" And I said, "Oh, I'm great." I was high. "Oh, I'm great." And she looks at me and with that AA look that Stuart knows, y'all know, and said, "No, really, Lynn, how are you doing?" And I just busted up crying. I thought, she knows. So I went into treatment just to appease my friends. When I got in there, they told me I had to stop alcohol. I only went in there to stop doing cocaine. I didn't go in there to stop doing everything. That wasn't my idea. So I went in there for just a couple of weeks. I left because I had no intentions of not doing anything. And I went on a 2-year binge after that. 1989, I went into another treatment center and I surrendered. I knew. And that was after having pulled a butcher knife on my husband with my daughter in between us, saying, "I'll kill you if you don't get away from me," because he was trying to take my drugs away from me. That's pretty insane. That's pretty insane. And so before I went into treatment in 1989, my son was 19 at the time. He grew up with all this. He saw me walk into the kitchen. He just looked at me with this look of sorry, just like, he says, "Mom, I thought you weren't going to do this anymore." And I said, "Tommy, I can't stop." And that was my first admission that I cannot stop. Left to my own devices, I cannot stop. So I went into another treatment center in 1989 I surrendered to the fact that I needed to give up everything. I stayed in that program for almost 11 years. I was 2 months away from an 11-year cake in the year 2000. And I legitimately stood there and made a decision that, do I want to stay in the program and keep this time I have, or do I want to drink? And I want to drink came bigger than I want to stay in this program. And I started drinking again because, see, I was still convinced in my alcoholic, my nonsensical thinking, my delusional thinking, that I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just a drug addict. I'm not going to do with alcohol. I can't understand these people that said they drank alcohol for days and stayed up for days. I only did that with cocaine. Now I did alcohol with the cocaine, it's all together, all in one. But my disease wanted to get back in and tell me that I could do this. So I did it. And I drank for 4 years. I drank for 4 years normal. I drank like a normal person. I had a couple of drinks, if drinking every day is normal. Every night at 5 o'clock, I'd have a couple of cocktails and I was fine. Then I was someplace and somebody had cocaine. I knew it was going to be there. I said, I'll be okay. And I won't want to do it. We went out and everybody got drunk. We went back to where the cocaine was. And I said, I can just do a line. I'll be fine. I haven't done it in now this was 15 years I had been off of coke. I can do it. I can just do one line. And that weekend turned into 5 years. I couldn't stop. Once I did that one line, I was gone. And I broke up my family again. I lost everything that I had attained. I had attained a lot of credentials behind my name because, again, I was still looking for my fix from the outside in. So I had all these credentials, all this stuff saying who I was, because I still didn't know who I was. And none of that would suffice to keep me sober. It didn't matter. I became a chemical dependency counselor. I was working in the field. I was working at high-end treatment centers, low-end, no, not really low-end, more high-end treatment centers. And that wasn't enough. Knowledge was not enough to keep me sober. And I didn't realize what I had pushed out of my life and never accepted was God was there to help me. God was there all the time. And I just wasn't open to receiving any information. I wasn't open to being honest and open-minded and willing to do whatever it took. And what it took was for me to make a complete admission that I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict and my life's unmanageable. I'm powerless over it. Once I put it in me, I set off an allergy. The allergy sets off the obsession of the mind, and then I can't stop. Now that I don't have that with alcohol. I have it with cocaine, but it doesn't matter because if I pick up alcohol, I'm going back to cocaine because that's my drug of choice. So, and if it hadn't been cocaine, I probably would have eventually gone to the same place with alcohol. It's just not my story right now. I never went to jail. I never got arrested. I never had a DUI. I never got in an accident. I was a sly alcoholic addict. I took all the back roads. I did, I stayed out of the way. And I was, anyway. So in 2009, actually it was like 2007. I was trying to get sober again. I was staying in treatment centers. I was going into detoxes because now I'm snorting heroin too. Now, I had never done that before, but now I'm snorting heroin and cocaine and drinking. And I went into some detoxes and I left. Now, this is after having worked in the field. I know everything I'm supposed to know, but I still didn't have God in my life. So once in 2009, once I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to a power greater than myself, and that is what I needed to do. I needed to let my power determine my will, because me determining my will got me in trouble. I didn't want my will anymore. I couldn't rely on my will. I couldn't depend on my will. I couldn't respect my will. It all had to come from someplace else. And that, is like you said earlier, Ken, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You got to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of self-sacrificing, a lot of uncovering, discovering, and discarding. And that's what I had to do, and that's what I continue to do. If I didn't have that relapse, I wouldn't have the sobriety I have today, because I have my hair sticking up here. I have
Clearly, our program is not concerned with hairstyle.
I know, but where's the makeup lady? I need the makeup lady. My program today is based on my connection with God, and I'm also a practitioner for science of mind, religious science. What's it called? Center for Spiritual Living. It's what it's called now, but it's really science of mind, religious science. Right? Right?
That's
Glenn?
correct. And that's where
call it,
Lynn
right?
and I met. Yes, that's where we met.
Yeah. 33 or 30, a long time ago. Anyway, so yeah, so long time ago. I was
27
young.
years ago, dear. 27 years ago.
27 years ago. And you know, but see, I didn't have it when I met him. I was still out. I was for those 11 years. I was practicing all my character defects. I was still lying, cheating, running around, stealing. I was doing all the things that I wasn't supposed to do because I thought I was just supposed to stay sober. And I was doing that. I wasn't drinking or using. I was staying sober. They didn't tell me that the only thing you have to change is everything. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, once I got that, it's like, okay, I'm picking up the ball and I'm running with it because this is what I need to do. I don't want the life I had, and I don't want to ever go back to that. So, like I said, since then, with Science of Mind and with the AACA program, with my power that is in my life today, that tells me on a daily basis, shows me on a daily basis, works through me on a daily basis, I'm able to one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, not have that urge or that obsession. And I can't set off the craving unless I put it in me. And so I don't put it in me because I know that if I put it in me, whatever I put in me is going to set off that obsession in my head, because my thinking is going to become all distorted and tell me lies. It's going to tell me all kinds of lies because it lies to me all the time and tells me that I'm something I'm not. God doesn't do that. My disease does that. My disease says I can get through anything. Don't worry, I'm here. I got you back. This is the way you want to live. This is who you are. You know, and my God says, no, you're here for better reasons. You're more divine than that. You deserve more than that. You have more to contribute to life than just being still and being, you know, not unconscious, but, you know, being outside the world, outside the norm. So, I don't know
So
what
Lynn,
else.
we've got some, well, I was going to say, we've got some people, Lynn and Stuart,
Good.
that
Okay.
that I'm sure want to talk with you. And if you'll go to your upper right-hand corner, you'll see the area that says comments. And when you click on that, you'll see the chat room, and people are sending you messages and so forth. Stu, you can unmute yourself, I guess. Now you've been put in the penalty box for long enough.
All right.
I'm sorry, Sue.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I can relate to so much of that. You know, by the grace of God, I never got into the drugs. I obviously, you can't be a raging alcoholic and not dabble in this and that here and there. But I always, in the oddest way, I could drink a fifth of Crown Royal every day and a 12-pack of Bud Light with it. But I was terrified of drugs.
You know, I feel strangely incompetent to be on this panel. Are you with me, Scott? I feel like
Totally.
I need to go out tonight and conduct. Lynn used to call it conducting research.
That's
So
doing research.
I feel like I need to go conduct some research so I'll know what the hell I'm talking about. But I got to say, I do have to say that I wrote a chapter in the book that I'm wrapping up now, a chapter that addresses the very thing you're saying, Lynn. And what I call that chapter is the room next door. And the room next door references any place you know you don't want to be. And this is not just limited to drugs or alcohol. It's any choice that you know you're done with, or you don't want to ever either do that thing if you've never done it, or if you have done it, you don't want to be associated with having made that choice ever again. That once you get clear, then the answer to staying out of that room, I'm calling it a room, and you can picture it just like a room in a long hallway. That's room 27. That the way we stay out of room 27 is not just to stay out of room 27. We had a word for that in the 60s. The word was duh. Obviously, we're not going to go to 27. But the key is to stay the hell out of room 26 and 28, because those rooms are a doorknob away. They're right there. So as long as you're committed to staying out of 27, 26, and 28, you won't wind up in 27. And that teaching has been part of the Extra Mile program for years, and it has helped a tremendous amount of people to beware of the room next door.
I always remember the Japanese proverb. First the man takes a drink, then the drink takes the drink, then the drink takes the man. All the
That's
time.
right.
And
All the time.
in some of our cases.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
A strange question for you, and it's one. I'm not, by asking the question, I'm not expressing what my opinion is. I just think we may have some folks that are watching and wonder this, because all of you talked about an alcohol or a drug addiction, and I'm wondering what someone who is an addict and who is in recovery from those substances, what do you think when people talk about, I'm addicted to my phone, or I'm addicted to work, or I'm addicted to sex? We hear a lot about those as addictions, but as someone who has dealt with substance addiction, how do you feel when people talk about, I'm addicted to, we those of us that aren't addicts often throw that word around like it's nothing. I'm addicted to Oreos, or whatever. And I want to know what you think when you hear people say that, and I also want to know what you think. Are those true addictions in the same sense that you were addicted to drugs and alcohol?
That's a great question, Scott.
It is. I'll go first if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Ken.
I think that you can be addicted to anything. Oreos will, in fact, kill you. Just for the record.
It's black and white. That's all there is to it. It's black and white.
I may have actually attempted that.
Good one, Glenn.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lynn.
But, look, it's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says that alcohol is just a symptom of the real problem. The real problem isn't drugs and alcohol. The real problem isn't sex. It isn't drug or it isn't food. It isn't. The real problem is there's a spiritual malady. There's something off spiritually with the being. And so the only way I knew how to get out of the spiritual and emotional pain was to drink and get anesthetized. But then, I remember being in treatment. I remember somebody saying, I remember somebody saying that sober is an acronym for son of a bitch, everything's real. Because all of a sudden you have to feel. You can't use all of this other stuff. You have to actually feel stuff, and it was a really odd sensation. So that's my take on it.
Well, you gave us a term tonight, THIQ, and you said this could only be determined during an autopsy.
I've heard,
and I couldn't help but wonder if
I've never heard that.
I couldn't help but wonder if THIQ stood for "That's How I Quit."
That's pretty
You're
good.
quick there, Glenn. That's great.
Well, I guess that's one way to quit.
Yeah.
I think addiction. I think that society puts the word addiction on a lot of things that it doesn't belong on. It's just like a way to describe something. If somebody's overdoing something, and it kind of drives me nuts, because if you like something, all of a sudden now you're an addict because you like it. But did it take your home away from you? Did it take your health away from you? Did you lose your family because of it?
Right.
Did you go to jail because of it? What were the consequences? See, the consequences with me, anytime I picked up, were always negative. So why would I want those negative consequences again? If the consequences of eating cookies are just that you might get fat, well, that's something, that's your willpower, that you're still in your own will.
And I'm not making light, and I'm not making light of your story, but in all fairness, I don't remember ever having pulled a knife on someone to obtain the Oreos.
Exactly.
Or smoking them.
Exactly.
And yet most people can understand addiction. I have parents in my parent group tell me
Can
all the
or
time,
cannot, Stuart? Which one? Can or cannot?
C-A-N.
Okay.
And I have parents tell me all the time, why are these children like this? Why do these kids do what they know, what is so harmful to them? How can they be drawn? And I said, have you ever smoked a cigarette? Yeah, I used to smoke a lot. Tell me what it was like not smoking cigarettes. It's the worst thing in the world. In fact, it took me about 11 years of trying to quit every day, not to see a cup of coffee, smell a cup of coffee, or see a beer and not pick up a cigarette. I said, well, then you understand a little bit about addiction. You know, once you've been in a room with somebody trying to eat a meal and they cannot let go of their telephone to pick up a fork, you'll understand about addiction. So I think that what Lynn said, of course, is true. I mean, what does it do to your life? And if you can't have a conversation with somebody, I think you got a problem. Is it different than drinking? I don't know. Is it? They both keep you from dealing with people. They both keep you from getting what you want. They both keep so.
Well, I would add, Stuart, I would add that there is a hierarchy, an undiscussed hierarchy of addictions that allows people to rank their own addiction.
There you go.
At a lesser level, and in doing so, here's the beauty. And in doing so, it allows them to feel superior to other people, because it becomes, well, at least I don't have that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that one of the things that I've observed in a number of family systems is that when an addict chooses to get sober, the whole family's mobile goes, I mean, it goes crazy, because now they've lost their family member to judge. They don't have the wounded one to judge anymore, because the wounded one, as we say here right, the identified patient in Texas, we call him the wounded one. Yeah. And in Texas, the wounded one done got better. And all of a sudden, them getting better, while on one level the family wanted it, on another level, it's the last thing the family wants, because now they don't have someone to judge.
Well, but now you
can get addicted to being the person that saves.
That's
right?
called
codependency.
It's probably too strong, but I know, it's easy to want to be the hero and, I'll get you to treatment. I'll do this for you. And your life is driven by that drama that's there all the time.
It's a great hobby for caretakers. I can remember getting sober and my mother just looking at me with just vehement anger. And I said, why are you so angry? I'm doing what you've been putting letters under my windshield in motel rooms for 10 years. I'm finally home. I'm here. I'm clean. She said, yeah, and you look fantastic. And you sound good. And you look good. And my kid's back. And I am pissed that I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to get through all these years that I've spent worrying about you. And it seems so easy for you. You just got to quit shooting dope for a month, and everybody's picking you up on their shoulders and running you around, and you're Mr. Successful, Mr. Popular. And she said, I wish you well, but I'm just not sure how I feel quite yet.
Right.
And that, codependency is actually, I think it's more dangerous than an addict or an alcoholic. You take somebody extremely codependent, i.e. me, that I've been through codependency relationships, like, oh my God. And the problem with somebody that's codependent compared to an addict or an alcoholic, like, it's like somebody that's addicted to slamming bricks against their forehead. Like, there's evidence of that. Like, hey, man, you got that brick forehead slamming addiction thing going on, because I see it. It's written all over you. A codependent is they don't have the signs and symptoms that addicts and alcoholics have. They don't You know, they're dying on the inside because it's not actually about the person they're trying to help. It's about them. There's something really screwed up with them, and it's hard to say, hey, you know what? You have a codependency issue. Have you ever considered going to Al-Anon, where wine is a verb?
Yeah. Well, they find victims. They find victims.
Yes.
Every victim needs a codependent, and a codependent
Yep.
needs a victim, and that's how
Yep.
they do their lives. That's what makes sense to them and makes their life livable. So I don't put anybody down. That you be whoever you want to be.
Yep.
But I don't choose to be a victim anymore. And as long as I say I can't do that, or I won't do that, or this is being done to me instead of for me. If it's being done to me, I'm a victim. If it's being done for me, I'm a child of God. God's working through me. So there's a big difference.
Yeah. Yep.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So can we, as we wind down the show tonight, can we talk a little bit now about moving into solution and people getting help? Because there are no doubt people watching tonight and that will watch in the replay. We get a lot of replay views throughout the weeks to come. And there are people who are struggling as they listen and watch this show. And those are people that I want to make sure we reach our arms out to let them know that help is available. And Ken, you, Stuart, and Lynn, what would you say? And Scott, if you do, but I just feel like I want to acquiesce to their knowledge of this. What can they do? Offer us the hope in this, would you please?
I got something.
Bring it.
The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous has all the answers in there. It's a design for living. I was never handed a design for living. I did not know how to do life. When I got that book and I realized that I was the problem and what I was doing to myself was my problem, nobody else's. I had nobody else to blame for it anymore. And then going to big book workshops. I go to big book workshops every week and we read the book. I have sponsees. I read the book with them. We go line by line and go over what each thing means and how does this apply to your life and what can you do differently if you don't like the outcome of what you're doing right now. We look at those things and doing the fourth and fifth step. After they've already determined that they're powerless, they've done 1, 2, and 3, and that they can be returned.
For those who don't know, Lynn, can you tell us what the fourth and fifth step are?
The fourth step is to make a list. I got it. I don't have it right in my head now.
That's all right. You feel free to read it.
Yeah.
Did a searching and fearless moral inventory
Of ourselves, right? And then admitted to some, right, exactly. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And then, is step 4.
Step
and
4.
Then
step 5 is
admitted to God, to ourselves and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. So that's where we do it. Yeah, and you can only be the victim in the first 3 columns. The next 2 columns is is your life now, is what's got to change. Is the recognition of you. The first 3, you can blame everybody because the first 3 columns is what happened, who was it, how did it affect you? And it affected my pride, it affected my self-esteem, it affected my pocketbook, it affected my relationships, all that stuff. And then in knowing that, you go into the 6th and 7th step, and that's your character defects and your shortcomings. Once I found out what my character defects and shortcomings were, those were the things that were leading me into that stinking thinking, right? So once I knew what they were, I can't act like I don't know anymore. You can, once you know, you can't act like you don't know.
Well, that's just a life truth in general.
Exactly.
Once we know, we can no longer play the game of I don't know. Of course,
But a lot of people do. I see people coming in and out of these rooms because they're sworn victims. They want to be a victim. They don't want to surrender. They don't want to be honest. They don't want to be open-minded. They don't want anything in their life to change, but they want to change. Right. And then you go into the 8th and 9th step where you're doing amends to people. You're making up for the wrongs that you did in your 8th and 9th step. And then 10, 11, and 12 is doing an inventory on a daily basis in the 10th step. The 11th step is to seek God and to on a daily basis. I can't think of how it goes. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand Him. praying only for the knowledge of his will for me and the power to carry that out. And then 12 is having had a spiritual experience, I carry this message to addicts and alcoholics. And that's what keeps me sober. It says in the book, if you don't carry the message, you're not going to stay sober. I need to carry that message because every time I'm talking to another alcoholic about my experiences and listening to theirs, I'm growing. I'm growing. I've had people that don't want it. I've had them for a minute. I've had them for a week, a month, 6 months, and they disappear. But I'm still here. See, I can't determine who's going to get sober, who's going to get the message, who's going to want to change. But I know for me, what I have to do is I have to be of service to other people. And
Good.
so
So
my life
service is something that you feel is the answer, which we've talked
Absolutely.
extensively about that on our program. Stuart, what do you think the answer is that would offer hope for people today and healing?
Okay, there.
I'm gonna go with Lynn. I think that the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is as important, if not more so, for people that are experiencing a family member with a problem as it's people that have it as problem themselves. The most important thing, though, to get the meetings, and there are meetings in every phone book. AA has made it almost, in 2020, AA has made it almost impossible not to get help for a drinking or drug problem. It's all, you just get any little town, any little place, you talk to enough grandmothers, they're going to have somebody in their family in AA. So it's do something. Get around other people that are trying to do the same thing you're trying to do, and I'll guarantee you, your life's going to get better.
Yep.
And there's a lot of meetings on Zoom right now all over the world. I'm speaking at a meeting in London tomorrow morning. It'll be 11:30 in the morning here and 7:30 there.
We've even
They're
got
all over
Zoom
the world.
in Hobbs, New Mexico now.
Everywhere. I go to Canada, Italy, Holland, London.
Well, look at this. Look at this gathering. We have 5 people together in a room from 5 different states. And yet here we are in a meeting. Thank you, God. Thank you, technology.
Amen. Good for you.
Thank you guys for asking me to come.
The first meeting was June the 10th of 1935 when a traveling businessman ended up in Akron, Ohio, and knew that his life was screwed, and he had no idea how to he had no idea AA didn't exist. And so God intervened at a hotel in Akron, Ohio, and convinced him to start making phone calls to local churches and priests and nuns, and he ended up getting in touch with a guy named Dr. Bob, and Bill W. and Dr. Bob had the very first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that night. and there, for anybody that's truly suffering, technology has made it really accessible. I mean, it really has. And you don't even I haven't been in any AA meetings on Zoom, yet I've probably been in many, but I've never been in any official. I mean, if you just think you might have a problem with alcohol, you probably do. And just go look up, reach out to somebody, reach out to Lynn or Stuart or me or somebody, and we'll help you.
Yeah.
Lynn was right. She said, the 12th step is like, if you're not giving this back, you don't get to keep it. And that's what I live my life for every day, is to give back. So, I mean, there's hope. I heard
Lynn Ken give one of the most inspirational talks, and I won't name the treatment center, but it rhymes with Teddy Board. And she spoke at the Teddy Board Center, and she was outstanding. Absolutely
and
outstanding.
Ricky Mantle was there.
Yeah, Ricky Bantle.
Ricky Bantle. Somebody by the name of Ricky Bantle.
He's dead now, and you're not breaking in.
Yeah, but he got sober.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's a lot of famous people that are sober. I've sat in meetings with some of them. They're very open about their sobriety. So, I mean, look, there's you know, for me, like there's a great movie. Have you guys seen the movie My Name is Bill W?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. James
Phenomenal.
Woods.
Absolutely phenomenal. With who's the actor?
James Woods, right?
James
James
Wood.
Woods, and
I don't know
Who
who played Lois.
who played Dr.
Great
Bob.
movie.
Oh, Dr. Bob. I mean, I don't remember.
Great.
I don't remember, but I saw it years ago.
Yeah, it's a great movie. You ought to, if you think you have a problem, check it out. If you think
The
you
best-
know somebody with a problem, check it out.
The
James
best thing
Garner.
right now.
Garner.
James Garner, who I've had the pleasure of working with. But listen,
Yeah.
I know we need to wind up the show. However, we don't want to break our streak. And I didn't want to in mid-flow because you guys were speaking from the heart, but it would be the first episode ever where we haven't played a game, and we typically play the game right at 8:31, don't we, Scott?
As we do
All
every
right.
week.
Every
Right.
week.
At this time, we
And
play
it's
the
called-
game. Ooh, that's just wrong.
It's
Where we
called,
say
Ooh,
something
That's
that
Just
happened to
Wrong.
us, or something we saw,
Okay.
something we observed, and we went, ooh, that's just
So
wrong.
I want to lead off tonight and say, ooh, that's just wrong that Stewart's mustache doesn't have its own miniseries. That's my ooh, that's just wrong, because my brother, that is just world class. I love your mustache.
It's awesome.
That's cute.
Do you guys have an ooh,
We
that's
did a
just
we
wrong?
did a fundraiser and shaved it off 6 months ago.
No, you didn't.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how much
Yeah,
did
we
that
did.
go
Wow.
for?
We did a fundraiser for Make a Wish, and they said I can auction that mustache off, and I said let's do it.
Wow.
How much did it cost you to shave it off? What did that go for?
$14,300.
Oh, come on with it.
Wow.
How long did it take to grow back?
This is what, 6 months?
Wow.
Wow. So, Lynn, do you have an ooh that's just wrong, or Ken? Scott, who's got an ooh that's just wrong before
I
we?
got
I do.
Oh, look at that. Gabby's dropping a 1 in honor of Stewart's mustache.
It's just wrong. We can't do this every night.
Well, you guys
Yeah.
can watch us. We are on every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Central Time. We've been doing this since Easter Sunday. That's when we started. Ken, you got one?
I was in Michigan yesterday at a client's office, and I drove up. It's only a couple hours from here, and I was driving back. I don't know if you've ever this is on a different level. There's this woman, like she's the passenger in the car, and I think it was her. This happened so fast. Her husband was driving, I think. They passed me, and I look over, and she's like literally got her finger so far up her nose. I thought she was, and she was not just, she was digging. I
That's
was
just
like,
wrong.
that is, and I literally, Scott
So-
called me a couple of minutes later. I didn't tell him about it. I just said, I'm saving this for tomorrow night.
So are we talking about an archaeological dig?
I mean, yeah. And she had no shame. None. No shame at all. I was like, what in the heck are you doing?
Was she there with a little strainer shaking out what she had found? Right?
I literally was like, what? Anyway.
Hey, Stuart, we lost your picture, brother.
Emma,
Scott, what's your that's just wrong this week?
You know, I totally lost it. I can't remember what I was going to say after that one, because it reminded me of my grandfather. One time I was riding with my grandfather, and I'm I don't know, 5 years old, and I had my finger buried. And my grandfather just looked at me and just so calmly said, "Wave when you get to the bridge."
Oh,
I don't get it.
I've never forgotten that. I didn't pick my nose after that.
I thought it was just wrong in high school when the coach patted me on the butt and said, "Good game, Glenn, good game." And I looked over and said, Coach, the season ended 7 months ago.
I think it's just wrong if we don't wake up every day with appreciation for what's in front of us, what we've got,
Bam!
and
Amen.
life.
Amen.
Period.
Hey, and I would be remiss too if I didn't mention that for families that have dealt with this, one of the things that I know that NA or Al-Anon really can help. So for families that need to talk, boy, that's critical as well, because there are a lot of folks that are dealing with this who aren't the addict, but who are family members of the addict, who oftentimes can think they're all alone as they're going through this.
I was going to say too, with the Zoom meetings right now, if people want to stay anonymous, it's the best way, because you don't even have to put your picture up there, just your name or whatever name you want.
Sure.
And you can be anonymous. Just listen. Just go and listen to people speak about it and see what you can identify with, and find the similarities, not the differences.
Amen. Amen and amen.
So I'd like to offer go ahead, Ken.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I gotta say something, and I know Lynn will be able to relate to this. That I think after going, I was in and out of AA meetings for literally 22 years before I finally got it. And I only if Lynn woke up earlier, or anybody that wakes up earlier than me, and that you got more sobriety than I do, because it's one day at a time. Right. But it was the moment that I realized, man, I might actually have a little bit of a grasp on this now, is the moment that I stopped comparing myself to everybody else in the room. And I just went, you know what? I'm going to, there are people that are batshit crazy in some of these meetings that you would not invite over for tea and crumpets, Glenn. But there's sometimes though they may say one little thing, you're like, you know what, I can use that, and the rest of that crap you just said, I'm gonna just let you keep it.
Take what works and leave the rest.
That's it. Right. Take what you need, leave what you don't behind. That's it.
Progress, not perfection. There's
That's
so
right.
many.
You go, Glenn.
There's
go,
so
Glenn.
many. Listen, there's so many takeaways from the 12-step program. There's so many things, and they are just the truth. I want to offer my closing thoughts, because I was operating in such close proximity to addiction for so many years, and I never once did I feel better than. That was not my experience. I felt grateful, and I felt concerned, and I always was thinking, is there anything? Is there any stone unturned? Is there anything that I could do or say or feel? Is there anything? And what I want to offer for our audience really is to take any day, and tonight would be a good day. This would be a good day, a good evening, to take time to just be still and close out the chaos and the noise, and think in terms of the value of personal peace. That there isn't nothing that is worth the loss of that. Right. Because if that's gone, you've got nothing. And I don't care what the thing is. It may not be a drug. It may be an experience. It may be a habitual thought pattern. It may be a person. It could be whatever. It could be the man or woman in the mirror. But whatever it is, if you just stop, and I want to give credit where credit is due, because a great metaphysician many years ago, one of a few phenomenal mentors that have entered my life, taught me this in metaphysics. And what they said is that every poor decision we make in our lives on some level can be traced back to, and listen very closely, because this is a keeper if there ever was one. It can be traced back to a momentary lapse in the remembrance of who it is we are.
That's right.
So if you simply are getting ready to make a questionable decision, and we've all made them, and I don't mean just this panel of 5, I mean this panel of 5, everybody that's in the chat room watching, everybody in the world, that ever has lived, is, or ever will live. We will all make choices that we look back on and we realize that it's embarrassing that we made that choice. But most of those choices were made with the information at hand. Most of those choices were not made trying to deliberately do wrong or deliberately do ugly. And yet, when we get to that crossroads where we're getting ready to make a choice with a high price tag on it, if we would just stop and remember the truth of who it is we are, that way we're not invited to play in somebody else's drama. And we remember that we started out this dance by outswimming 500 million other sperm to get here in the first place, which is an act of a victorious life force. That is something that knows it's on a mission. It knows that it's here, and what it wants more than anything in the world is to express itself. That's what it wants. And that's how you got here. You are a winner by divine design. And winners behave accordingly. So simply stop and remember, this is not a morality issue at all. This is a matter of just, if you remember the truth about me. So for example, how many derailments might have I avoided in my life if I had stopped and said, the truth about me is that I am a grateful human being who is completely devoted to expressing at its capacity. That's the truth about who it is I am. And I'm committed to that. I'm also committed to never being the one that gets in my own way. I'm committed to that. So those remembrances will help us when we get to those forks in the road. Will this interfere with my sense of personal peace? And I got to tell you, that's my criteria. If the answer is yes, then I'm sorry, the price tag is too high.
Amen.
Amen. I agree.
It's a great way to close it out.
Yeah.
Anyone else have, Ken, you got some closing thoughts? Go ahead, Lynn.
In 2009, when I came back for my last time, I had read a book called The Power of Decision. And I don't know if you've heard of that book.
Raymond Charles Barker, baby. Raymond Charles Barker.
It was a church required book for being a practitioner. And I'll tell you, that book changed my life, because I realized at that moment that I was making the decision whether I wanted to continue living my life the way I was living it, or I wanted to change. It was so simple. It just seems so simple, and it still does today. It seems so simple. Just make a decision and stick to it. That's all. You're only a victim if you don't stick to the decision you've made. Then you become a victim.
Yeah.
That's my closing.
Stuart, you got any closing thoughts? We're winding down.
I love you guys. I had a great time. And been wonderful. Good to meet everybody.
Nice to meet
you again.
Hey, man, I so appreciate you bearing your soul.
My thoughts are, although we don't encourage relapse, relapse is sometimes part of the deal. And no matter where you are in your journey, like I've had long stints of sobriety where I wasn't necessarily sober for me, but for someone else or whatever. And or I was not thorough in my fourth and fifth step. And eventually those resentments resentment is the number one offender in an alcoholic or addict's life. And for me, getting completely honest with myself and personally, I know I've done at least 6 fourth steps, because they talk about the layers of the onion as you continue to grow in sobriety. The layers of the onion are peeled back and more is revealed. And all I can say is this is no matter where you are, if you've never looked at getting sober, no matter where you are, it doesn't matter how many times you've screwed up. If your heart is still beating and you're still here, God loves you, and there is a reason, and there is hope for you. Don't give up on yourself.
Don't quit before the miracle.
That's right. Don't quit before the miracle, Stuart.
Amen. Amen.
Well, Scott, do you have any closing thoughts? Since you're the one that takes us out anyway.
Just thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody for sharing on the comments too. Some incredible stories from the folks that are watching tonight. What a special night. Thank you. Thanks to Stuart. Thanks to Lynn. Guys, love you. Thanks.
I love you.
Thank you for your
Take
open
care.
hearts, guys.
Thanks
All right.
everybody
Take us
for
out,
watching
brother.
tonight, September the 20th. We'll look forward to seeing you again next Sunday at the same time. Don't know what we're going to do to follow this one up, but we will find out next Sunday. When you join us again for the Ken and Glenn Show with a guy named Scott. Good night,
And
everybody.
Stuart and Lynn, stay on for a few minutes. Stay on.
Stay
We're going
on.
to talk to you
Okay.
privately.
We'll be
Okay.
right back.
All right. Bye, everybody.